Okay, so welcome anyone who's watching to the Nations of Sanity project. My name's Matthew. I've got the great pleasure of speaking to Dying to Live, which is a YouTube channel that features videos on police interactions. I highly recommend it if you don't already know it. There's some great videos on there. In addition to showing police interactions, there's also some words of advice, letting you know your rights. Obviously this is in America, so it's obviously a lot of it's very specific to American law, but a lot of it translates to other nations as well. I mean, there's basic rights that we all have, and as I will get into in my conversation, there's a lot of basic rights that we should all have, whether or not we have them in our various nations and counties and states and what have you. So so thank you very much for speaking to me.
Oh, that's what's up, brother. I appreciate you inviting me, man. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. Now, the reason why I wanted to speak to you so much was, as I said to anyone listening to this, your channel obviously talks about, features a lot of like police interactions, and you also talk about like where people stand with regards to the law, what their rights are, and obviously, as your videos show, a lot of the times the police don't know the law and the police don't know what your rights are, which is obviously a bit of a problem when they're supposedly there to enforce the law and protect our rights. I will get into the Nations of Sanity projects in a little bit and what that's all about, and I'd like to get your opinion on that. But first, I'd like to ask you a little bit about your channel and the work that you do, and what got you into what kind of just made you want to do it. What made you want to start showing police interactions and educating people on their rights and the law?
Oh well, man. Look. Oh man, how do I start? I was a sheeple, brother. When I say I was a sheeple, I just didn't know no better, man. I've dealt with the cops my whole life. I've never seen any good interaction. Of course, we've seen cops do great things sometimes, because in the performances they do, eventually you'll strike gold, right? But most interactions I've seen with cops, I never saw nothing good. And growing up, I've interacted with them so many times, and I didn't know that I had rights. I was free. Nobody had something over me, you know what I mean? But I used to just always give in, let them do what they wanted to do to me. And whether that was end up being financial, where I end up in the court system and I'm paying until I can't breathe no more, or just them making me feel, and pardon my language, raped on the side of the road many nights. Because I try to say, hey, I'm not up to nothing. I'm just going to work, or I'm just going to do this. And next thing you know, I'm being held up for 30 minutes, them tearing up my vehicle, all to let me go and say, just get on, That's a feeling of, and I hate the word, man, but rape. I felt molested on the side of the road many nights, man. And I still didn't know better. I still never woke up, right? So I moved to a town called Springfield, Illinois. And when I moved there, I opened up a cab business, and meaning I was on the road all the time, brother. When I say 18 hours a day, sometimes I'm on the road. And every time I turned the corner, I was getting pulled over for one reason or another. And I'm like, I know I'm being victimized, but I don't know what to do. So I let it happen I had 14 tickets in 1 year. No, this is what woke me up and started my channel. I had 14 tickets in 1 calendar year, brother. Every time I turned the corner, I would get a ticket for my tent, or it'd be I didn't put a signal on 50 feet before I got to turn, or I had a air freshener over my thing and it's obstructing my view or whatever, man. And when cops didn't like what I was saying, because I was trying to execute my rights, I didn't know how to, but I would try. And just take the ticket and shut up. You know what I mean? Yeah, they couldn't do nothing else with you. You get your ticket, you go to court, you lose, you pay a fee, and you start over for the next cop, right? Well, anyway, once that started happening to me, man, I said, what can I do to get out of this mix? It's like a revolving door, brother. It's like I was being targeted, and it's just not me. I can feel singled out, but this happens to many men, not just black, white men, every day on the streets. They target you, and if you do stand up for your rights, you'll still get a ticket, and then you go to court, And with no proof, you're going to lose and you're going to pay fees and violations, man. And that's an never-ending cycle. So what happened to me is I said, I'm done. I went on the internet and started researching how to beat a traffic ticket. And I found out something called sovereignty, which I never understood ever, right? But once I started researching what sovereignty is, I realized how free I really was. That all this was a game and a scam and a charade. It was just fake. And the only way they was getting that power over me was my consent. You know what I mean? Because I thought they had that power over me. Nobody ever told me you was free, you know? So anyway, I started going to court playing sovereign, you know, and I was threatened by many judges. They told me they was gonna lock me up under the jail if I keep talking about jurisdiction and prove I gotta be here and my name not Quentin Booker. But I knew to stand firm because I knew it was true. So those 14 tickets got put in front of one judge. Literally, I kept going there playing sovereign. Prove I gotta be here. I challenge your jurisdiction. I'm not Quentin Booker. I'm on here on his behalf. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not gonna play your game. I'm not gonna make a plea. I did that over and over and over until this one judge said, why this dude playing crazy every time? Now, I'm not playing crazy because they know I'm not playing crazy. But everybody in the audience seeing what's going on with me, now it's making people think. So now they don't want me to be seen in front of these people saying what I'm saying, because then if everybody come in this courtroom and say, I challenge your jurisdiction, they make no money that day. So they start calling me last. They started making sure the courtroom was empty before I go in front of the judge. They tried every trick to get me to come out of my sovereignty. You know what I mean? Pretty much saying just no victim, no crime. Prove your jurisdiction. Show me the piece of paper that says you have power over me, because I know I signed nothing and there's no victim standing over here saying he hurt or damaged me. So why am I here in the first place, no matter what you say I did, you know? And the judge, man, he didn't want to deal with me. He was an African-American judge. So I guess he was feeling my cries because I was crying, brother. I was dying. And he put all my tickets in front of him, and he told the state's attorney, pretty much make a deal. This dude gonna keep coming here and playing crazy. And you can't do nothing with him if he don't plead. There's nothing they can do with you. Continuance. Trust me, I lived in court every month. And they made a deal. They said, you know what, man, because we got, and I was tired of going to court. So I copped out for 2 tickets out of the 14. Pretty much simple tickets that was gonna go on my credit. Nothing I had to pay, no demands, no nothing. And you know what, I disagreed with that, but it would have taken me another 2 years to fight them off. You know what I mean? So I make a deal with them and say, you know what, you drop all those tickets and I'll take the 2 and we'll walk away and leave it alone. And that's what happened. I felt like I lost in the situation, but I won so much because I understood the court system a lot better doing what I was doing. Now, am I a sovereign? No. But I'll do anything I got to do if you keep just beating me over the head and telling me I'm guilty of something I didn't do. Brother, I was not, out of the 14 tickets, maybe 2. Maybe 2. And because everybody sometimes wrong too. You know what I mean? But I was getting tickets just for standing up for my rights. You know? No, you can't search. No, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to do that. And that's taken as an attitude. You're a problem child, and we'll show you. And when you do that, you end up in court with many tickets in front of some judge who's just gonna rule the gavel on you. You know what I mean? So I hate to be long-winded, but I do want to say I was so desperate that I went to a method that I had no choice. What do I have to lose going in here playing crazy with these people? And you can call it crazy because I know sovereignty is real. Either way, you know what I mean? I know what I'm saying is true. Whether I believe it fully or not, I know what I'm saying is true. They know what I'm saying is true. You know what I mean? So it ended in a stalemate when I say that's what kicked off my YouTube. And then I just put cameras in my car. And then I said, you know what, I'm just going to expose them every time. And that's the best way. I might not win in the system, but I'm going to always expose you folks. And maybe you'll just leave me alone. And guess what happened? Cops don't mess with me, brother. They run my place. My YouTube pop up because they put me on their list, that terrorist list. You know, trust me, when they run my name, it says person got a warrant. No bull. I don't have a warrant, bro. I'm not looking, nobody's looking for me. Yet when the cops run my name, it says wanted person. I'm not even, so I don't even get put on no more unless you want to be made famous. It is what it is, you know. And I thought it was a win-win for me, but what about the thousands of people who don't know no better? See, they'll leave me alone because they say, okay, he know how to expose us or play the game a little bit more. So it's a little more difficult with him. But there's so many more people who just won't wake up, brother. So I hate to be long-winded, but that's what started me in my channel, just being, you just don't know how many judges told me he trusts that officer over me. So I said, you know what? I'll figure out how to play y'all game. And I started playing their game. Sorry, brother.
No, that's great. I mean, well, the thing is, you're right though as well, because they rely on ignorance. That is what they rely on most of the time. And no, I mean, and to be honest, this is again why I encourage anyone watching this to check the channel out, because I think it's important, because it's educational. It's not just like the spectacle of watching police interactions, and sometimes it can be funny, and a lot of the times it's just, you know, infuriating. But it's important, because it's important that people understand what the rights they do have under these shitty systems that we have. And they are, you know, I mean, and like I said, I'll get into that in a minute, but, you know, even the rights that we do have under this system aren't, you know, in line with the rights that we should have. But people don't even know the rights that they do have, and the law and the rules that the police are supposed to obey, and the police rely on that. I see it so often in the videos when they're asking for people's ID, and they'll say it in a way that suggests that they've got to give their ID, but if they ever come across anyone who knows that they don't have to, and they challenge them and say, well, you know, do I have to? And then they're like, oh, and they'll try to say it in a different way. But that's so sneaky, you can't trust them. And that's something that you pointed out on many of your videos, which is an important lesson.
Well, the problem with cops is this: they don't go to school long enough. I don't know how you can reside over the law when you don't know the law. And that's common in America, brother. They run around these streets, and if they want to get you on something, they go look it up. They don't know nothing about what they want to get you on until they go to their computer and start typing in what they can get you on. You ever see somebody being detained for 10, 15 minutes because they're discussing what they can get you on? They don't even know what they got you for. They just said, well, let's see what happened in these 15 minutes that we can make a crime. And that's the problem with police in America. They don't know the law enough. And this is why the lack of respect. That's why I don't respect them at all, because they don't know the law at all. You know, they know just as much as me. And that makes me more qualified than them when I don't know much at all myself. There's too many laws, you know? So if you're not qualified as a lawyer to be a cop, it's a situation, and this is what we face in America right now. Now, I can't speak for other countries because I've only been in this country. I've been to many states in this country, but the problem with police in America is they don't know the law, so they just winging it until they can find, you know, look it up and find a crime and go with it. And that's the problem, man. It's not enough education behind police.
Well, I mean, from my own experience, I mean, I live in England, obviously, and grew up here. I did live briefly in Australia. Other than that, I've not been anywhere else around the world. But from what I can tell, and certainly from my own experience, that's what they're like everywhere. So, you know, there's slight differences, as I say, you know, our cops aren't armed with guns, and there are slight differences, but in that regard, there is no difference, because our police are the same. They don't know the law. We have auditors over here, you know, who take photos around and check to see whether the cops, similar to you have in America, and it's exactly the same. I mean, even in those situations where you have these auditors who know their rights and they know exactly what to say and exactly what not to say, and even they constantly get arrested and constantly get detained and constantly get even assaulted. Even there was a recent one where it was outright assault. I mean, you know, there's no other way to paint it. And this is in the situation where the auditors know their rights and can affirm their rights, but because the police are so clueless and lacking in morals, I mean, I don't like to be disparaging of people, but there's a shocking lacking of intelligence as well. Not just the knowledge, but all of the police that I see interacting with the public, they don't know the law, but also you can't speak to them like human beings. They seem to have that kind of robotic kind of, you know, it's almost like just about intelligent enough to follow the orders, but not any more than that you can kind of have a rational conversation with them or appeal to their logic or certainly not their morality. But yeah, so it is a problem that's everywhere. I mean, like I say, it's not exactly the same in all countries, but yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've seen a lot of what's been going on around the world with, like, obviously all the lockdowns and stuff like that, but I mean, I've got some friends who live in Australia, and the police out there, I mean, they might as well be wearing swastikas on their uniforms for how they're acting. I mean, they're putting people on lockdown, arresting people for being like more than a mile from their home and stuff like this. And, you know, and we've had similar things over here, people being arrested for not having a mask on when they've got, and they'll say, oh, I'm medically exempt. And they say, well, where's your papers to show that you're exempt? And I'm thinking, we've got to show papers now? Just, you know what I mean? Just walking out in public, and, you know, it's getting ridiculous. And unfortunately, the police are they're the ones that are pushing this, and they're
the ones who enforce it. They're not the ones who's pushing it. They're the ones who enforcing it. And that's the problem right there. Because you can push anything you want, but without those followers and those mini-men to enforce it, then it's just talk, right? So this is why my biggest issue is always with the police. And yeah, I can go to the mayor and I can go to the governor, but the problem is the order follows who enforce it. If we can reach them people, then they just giving out orders that don't mean nothing. You know, they just talking because you're not gonna follow that order. There's some people who gotta reach. The order follows. If any government make a mandate or a rule or a law, somebody has to carry out that order. Them are the people we gotta reach. No, we're not gonna carry out that order. If you can't reach those people, the orders don't. You can go after the Queen of England all you want. As long as she got her minions out there knocking you over the head, that's the problem. You know? She can't come out there and knock you over the head herself. So that's just my opinion, bro.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, these laws mean nothing without the troops that are going to be following. I mean, I have to admit, I'm not overly hopeful about appealing to the sort of people that are police, because I mean, I despise the police for many reasons, and I do think that they draw the worst kind of people to their ranks. So out of all of the people, like with my project, when I'm reaching out to people, the last people in the world I would reach out to would be the police, because I just don't think that they would have, I think they would be the last people that would have the mentality to be, you know, open to those ideas. Unfortunately, because there's a lot of people that are obviously, you know, that are obviously like that. But yeah, no, it is a valid point, because I mean, I don't have the answers. I have a proposed answer with my Nations of Sanity project, which I'll, if you don't mind, I'll segue into now.
Okay.
And for anyone who's watching this who doesn't know what the Nations of Sanity project is, basically, it's based on the assertion that the only way to create a truly free society with truly equal rights is to establish the non-aggression principle as the law through a universal peace agreement. And to anyone who's listening to this who doesn't know what the non-aggression principle is, it's basically just the moral principle that comes from the concept of self-ownership. So if we accept the concept that everybody has ownership over themselves, meaning you have right and responsibility over your own self, then the moral principle that comes from that basic concept is that obviously you can do what you want because you own yourself, but you don't get to violate others because they own themselves. And if we use that basic concept to create an objective and universal standard of law, because one of the biggest problems I think in this world is that we have ruling governments that make laws. No one should make laws. Laws shouldn't be decided, not even democratically, they shouldn't be decided by people. They should be based on a simple principle. You own you and I own me. So the law is based on that simple concept. Because you own you and because I own me, the only time there can be a crime is when there's a victim. And I know you say similar things on your own channel, no victim, no crime. And the thing is, I know I'm saying much the same thing in a different way. And lots of people, and this is one of the things about this whole idea, is I think this appeals to a lot of people without them necessarily knowing it. I think if you could get this kind of idea out there into a kind of like, you know, mainstream conversation, or even just to like a lot of people, I don't think many people would reject it. And maybe some would, and there'd be a lot of questions and confusion and things, or what about this and what about that, you know, and all of that, and things of worry about the implications. But the basic morality, the basic idea that everybody owns themselves, who's going to oppose that other than a fascist, other than an overt fascist? I don't understand who could oppose that. So yeah, that's my idea. That's what I think everyone needs to unite on. As much as I think that the work like people like you do is great with regards to educating people on their rights, the rights that we're granted by our government are not good enough. The rights that we should have are the rights that are based on us owning ourselves.
If I may,
you say
who would oppose that? Only people will oppose that as fascist, is what you said, right? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
I disagree. Let me tell you why. Leaders lead, followers follow. Everybody is not a leader per se like you, brother. You know, some people have to be led, you know. So when you say you don't know who would follow that other than no, some people just has to be led, you know what I mean? Now maybe your message needs to come through clearer or better or find a better way to reach them, you know, because as I say, leaders lead, followers follow. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say people don't want to open up to it, or that if they oppose what you're saying, that they somehow, I would just say they're scared of what can happen if they don't. That's a scary thing, brother. Trust me. I know what it means to what I do, or even on a small level of what I do, how scary it can be. I know what it feels like to have 6 armed men stand around you and threaten you, something gonna happen to you if you don't comply. I know what that feel like. My thing is though, I am not of this world. Take me, brother. You know, I live and die on my feet. So with those 6 armed men, just drop me, bro, because I believe in what I'm saying and what I'm doing. Everybody ain't like that. Those 6 armed men is gonna make them submit. My wife is that way, and I love her to death, but she will submit. You know what I mean? They say. And that's the issue, brother. It's fear, man. So don't blame those people. That's fear, brother.
I understand what you're saying, but just to clarify my point, I'm talking about people that would actually oppose that idea, not in the sense that, because and this is why I love talking to people like yourself, because it helps me explain it better, because I understand where I'm, you know, not presenting it well. But this is an important thing, because it's not about not having leaders, it's about not having rulers, and it's about understanding the difference between the two, you know, because all these sheep that want to have leaders, that's fine. It's like we can still have a government-like system that runs like a collective. We can still have, like I say, leaders, we can still have hierarchies, we can still have all of that. But the reason why a leader is different to a ruler is because a leader we follow voluntarily. So the sheep who want to follow a leader get to follow a leader, but they don't get to force me to follow a leader. They don't get to force their leader onto me, and so on and so forth. So the point is, and this is the whole idea of making the non-aggression principle the law and having this universal standard, because if we accept the concept that everyone has right over themselves, then you're free to give that up. You're free to give your power to somebody else. That's part of your ownership over yourself, is that you can give it away to others if you want. So I can, if I wanted to, say, look, I don't want to make all these decisions. I'm quite happy to have this representative represent me. That's fine. There's no problem with that. But what we need to understand, and the point of this universal law would be, is to say that you can have all of that, but at no point can any of these leaders become rulers. At no point can any of these collectives become ruling authorities. That, because the point is like, you know, let's say I want to be a leader and I want to lead 500 people. My point is even if I have 5 million people, at no point do we have the right to tell you what to do. You know, that's the point. It's about saying, no matter, you know, like, yeah, that is my point. I'm basically saying you can have leaders, but you can't have rulers.
I love it, because I'm that type of person. But this is what I would challenge you at.
Okay.
If you can't control the situation, how do you stop the chaos? That would be my question to you. Because listen, you can say no victim, no crime, right? And smaller government is the best government, right? But if a militia of men start running around victimizing folks, who do you get to step in and stop that militia of men who's taking advantage of those people who can't defend themselves?
Well, this is one thing I want to clarify. I'm not saying smaller government. I'm saying, like, it's not about the size. So I don't want to shrink government. I want to remove it as a ruling entity and convert it into like a non-coercive. So let's say for example, I had a Nations of Sanity revolution tomorrow. Right? Say, okay, what would that happen? I know it's not going to happen, but what, you know, just
I hear you. Yes, sir.
Say it happens tomorrow, right? What I'm saying is we've got this giant ruling government, we've got this giant collective, we've got all these public services and all of this. Now, what I'm saying is that ruling government would now be illegal once the non-aggression principle was established in law. It would be illegal as a ruling entity, which means it would have to become what I would call a voluntary collective. But it doesn't have to shrink in size. It doesn't have to be any smaller. It's not about the size of the government. It's about what it is. So You can be big, you can be nationwide, as long as you don't wield any rights over anybody else. You're basically acting with no more rights than any individual person would have. You see
Hold
what I'm
on, and
saying?
you think that's a possible thing?
I think it's highly unlikely. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but yeah.
You think that you can give someone power
No.
and don't use that power? Well, when you say the government still exists, what are you calling them? A power group.
Well, no,
A power.
well, sorry, this is my point. What I'm saying is like if we establish the non-aggression principles law, the ruling government wouldn't exist. Like it would no longer exist. It would be illegal. It's like abolishing it. We're abolishing ruling governments, right? But the point is tomorrow everything's still there. You know, you've abolished this ruling government. So the UK government, say it's in this country, the UK government, or in your country, the American federal government and the states no longer have any right to rule over you. They no longer have any power, right?
Yeah.
But you've still got all this infrastructure. You've still got all of these public services. You've still got all of this stuff going on that was once a government. What I'm saying is with this new law, where no one's allowed to rule over anybody else, what do you do with that? Well, you can continue to run it, but you run it in a non-coercive manner. You run it as a voluntary collective. Those are the new terms under which it has to run. So if you have to go back to your original question, I just wanted to paint that picture, to go back to your original question about militia and stuff like that, my point is a militia would be no more of a danger to the voluntary collective that the US government has converted into than it is now. In fact, it would be downside less of a danger because it would have less public support, because you would still have this giant voluntary collective. Like you could still have the police, for example, in this new world, but the difference is those police would have no powers that you don't have. They would only have the same power to, you know, because this is the point I make about the laws, like, and this connects a lot to the work that you do, is the police are always abusing their power, but they shouldn't have that power. They don't need that power. To enforce real laws, they don't need that power, because the power to stop a rape or stop a murder or stop a theft, you have. You know, individuals can make citizens arrests for violent crimes. So that power is not something they need to enforce real laws. They only need these extra powers to enforce bullshit laws, like drug laws, for example, where they have to be able to initiate force on a peaceful person, where they have to be able to bust into a home over, you know, a completely non-violent activity between consenting adults. The fact that they can call that a crime, then they need the power to be able to violate people, to be able to, you know, to have some kind of authority over them. But in a system where the non-aggression principle is the law, what we're saying is the one and only law, this is like the only rule that everyone has to abide by, is that no one owns anyone else. Is that we all, I know it seems a bit utopian, but think how many people
I love it. I live by what you're saying. Nobody owns nobody else. If you hurt or damage them, you should absolutely make it right. This is what I live by. So me and you are like right here on that. The problem where me and you break down is this, right? Oh, let me try to explain it this way. First of all, to live in a world of like yours, I would love it. The problem is there's a lot of people out there who can't make it in that world that you suppose, okay? And fact remains, who's going to step in for the no? See, there's a lot of voiceless people. You have a voice. You know your courage, your strength, and your conviction to do whatever you got to do in that society, right? What about the people in your society that you speak of with no voice? Who's voiceless, who's menless, who can't defend themselves quite like you would probably be able to in your society when you say it's all voluntary. You know what I mean? Hey, if you give yourself to this government, then give it to it. If you don't, you don't. As long as you don't hurt nobody, be free, do your thing. No rules, no regulations, no law. I get it. I'm with you. But what about those people who, because you know, men love power. The sad part of this world is that men love power. So even in your world, there's going to be a group of men who are going to make themselves rulers. And they're going to run around taking from people who can't defend themselves. Then what do you do?
Well, there's always going to be people like that. But in my world, those people will be deemed criminals. This is the point. Okay. Like in our world, in our current world, I'm a criminal because I smoke cannabis. you know?
Okay.
Or
well, you're not, because it's legal where I live in Illinois. But
all right, well, it's not legal where I live, so but you know,
okay.
But my point is this is what I mean. Basically, there's so many problems in the world and everything, and we're, you know, and there's all sorts of things that we can kind of look at. But something that's kind of fundamental, something that kind of corrupts our societies at the core and undermines everything from that, is the corruption of law. Is the fact that we've taken something that could be objective and universal, you know, like the, you know, how we define crime, and we've taken that and we've made it arbitrary. We've made it something that's just decided by ruling governments, whether they're democratic or dictatorship, doesn't matter. It's no less arbitrary because it's just what people are deciding based on their preferences and what have you. My point is in my society, there will always be these people that want to scheme and take power and what have you. But the difference is, in this society, that power is there for them to take, and that power is considered legitimate and legal. In my society, that power will not even be legal. So the point is, it's like in our society, there's these ruling governments, these criminal enterprises that they can legitimately take hold of. In my society, they would have to do something like that in secret, because it would be a crime to rule over anybody. Would be a crime. It's a little bit like if somebody wanted to create some little slavery ring in the middle of England or America or something like that. They'd have to do it in secret because slavery is illegal. It would be like that, but for all violations of self-ownership. So ruling governments would be illegal, and anyone that tries to start one up would have to do so in the most secretive way, and they'd have to build it up without anyone knowing, because as soon as anybody knows, the rest of society can just come and take them down because they are considered crimes. You know what I mean? It's I know
your main goal is no victim, no crime. Then
yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
That's the whole crux of it. No victim, no crime.
That's
right?
it. Yeah,
I'm with you. Now I got a question for you. You go to the hard part right here.
Okay.
Because now we got an eye, right? How do you stop a power-hungry government and make them change their mind from the power they already got?
Oh, I don't think you can. I don't think you do it that way. And this is why I'm not going through political processes or trying to appeal to those people. And this is also why I wouldn't try to appeal to the people that work for the police and stuff like that. I'm trying to appeal to the rest of us, not just people like you and me who are actually kind of already thinking about this, but people who aren't thinking about this, but if they did think about it, would be on our side. You know, it's like, which I think is most people. I think.
How do your family feel about it? Because that's the biggest problem you always gonna face. You got a lot of sheeple in your family. How do your family? Just personal, I hate not even to get personal.
Yeah.
Just how do your family feel about this?
They think it will never happen, but they don't have any moral objection to it happening. They're like, yeah, that would be great, Matt, but you're dreaming, you know? Which is, and
are they actually following your steps to make it happen?
No, I don't get an awful lot of support in that. I think the problem is there's not a lot of belief. There's not a lot of belief that it could happen. And I can understand that, because I don't have a tremendous amount of belief that it will happen myself. I mean, I'm not doing this with the expectation.
Not to cut you off, and I do apologize. You know why? It's not the belief. They will love it. They fear the government. They fear what will happen if they rise up in that manner. Because that's an overthrow of government. When you tell you're going to restructure the way it go, that's an overthrow, okay? They fear losing their house, their livelihood, the money they make a year, their cars, living a good life, or whatever they fear. They see. And I'm gonna leave this alone. The government always wants you to have something to lose, okay? The reason why I'm tamed and so tamed and I'm not a crazy dude and I ain't far as I wanna be, I got kids and I wanna see them grow. And I gotta take care of them and be there for them. And I know one minute they'll wipe me out in a minute. They'll put me on the news and say I did this and I plan to do all this and nobody will believe me. Just flash it over the news and they'll say he's a terrorist, you know what I mean? I know what they could do to me, one man, you know what I mean? It's the fear your family have of what will happen to them. What's your message? And not telling you what to do. Well, what my message would be to anybody is get over the fear. Because as long as that fear is there, you're talking on deaf ears. Trust me, I talk to my family every day about what their rights are and what to do when they get challenged by the police. And guess what? They fear the gun and the badge. They fear going to jail and being taken off somewhere and locked up and getting fingerprint. They fear those things, man. You don't understand that's the problem right there. Fear. So if we can get past, if you can find a solution for us being scared, and me too, because I'll be scared as shit, brother. I trust me, I got cameras all over my house. I don't know who's gonna come kick down my door any night, you know. Trust me, I fear. But my thing is, I'm just, hey, I can only live one life. I'm not of this world. So come get me when you can. And it is what it is. If I'm dead anyway, it don't even matter, right? But my point is, how do you convince those people who's scared? Because I'm with you. I'm going to ride with you. But the problem is, why you say you don't get that support, is they scared, man. They don't. Did you got bond money? Did you got a bank account? Because money solves all that. Capitalism. This is why I'm a capitalist small time. Because listen, if you got the money to bag them in their fear, get them out that bullshit they in or whatever, then they'll ride with you. But they know the government got the gold, they got the money, and they got the men. You just talking. Do you respect what I'm saying? Or I do. I hate for it to sound that way, so I apologize. But I'm just saying, you know, how do you help us with the fear, brother?
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah, no. And just to be clear, I appreciate all of this, so don't feel.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't want you to think I'm being disrespectful, or I just talk this way, so I have conversations. I'm a debater.
Yeah,
I apologize.
No, that's fine. And don't apologize. This is gold. I love it. I keep it coming. So don't hold back. I really like this is why I wanted to talk to you. I wanted all of this. I want feedback and everything. So don't worry about that side of things. Yeah, and this is a valid point. And I mean, one thing I have noticed a little bit since a lot of this COVID stuff is a lot of my family and friends are getting fearful of the government in the other sense. Like, I know what you're saying about them being fearful of the change, but they're actually starting to get fearful of the consequences of not changing. They're starting to be fearful of that, which is helping me a little.
Explain.
Well, they're being a bit more. Well, let's put it this way: like when you start talking about, you know, overthrowing the government and changing society in such a drastic way, of course that's going to stifle fear in people, because that's the unknown. They're like, well, look, okay, things aren't perfect now. It might be corrupt, but I'm relatively stable, and you know what kind of chaos is coming. And all
I got a good home over here. I'm living good. Don't mess that up.
Exactly. But with what's going on, that is now under threat, and it's under threat from government oppression. Like, businesses being closed down with all these lockdowns and stuff like that. People are losing the things that they would have feared losing under something like what I'm talking about. And so now I can kind of present it to them and say, well, look, all the things that you might be afraid to lose, you're in danger of losing those things if we don't do something. So maybe you need to take control of that fear, because it's not all irrational, you know, like there's validity to it. It's not like, you know, it's, and so I'm not trying to say that their fear is irrational, but try to say, well, maybe that fear is misguided if you're fearing change, because what you should be fearing is not changing it and everything going in the direction it's going, because the direction it's going is we are all going to lose everything. And the people that do have, like, you know, something, and a lot of us don't have much, but those of us that do have something are going to lose it. Because I mean, I don't know a small business that is doing okay. They're all struggling. They're all suffering.
I agree.
Many of them have closed down. So these are the sort of people that previously would have been reluctant to the idea of change because they're afraid of what's going to happen. But now they're afraid of what's going to happen under government control. So maybe that might make them a little bit more open. But the other side of that, though, as well, is just because they're scared of what the government does, that doesn't mean they're going to be any less scared of potential change. And the other challenge that I have with my project is trying to help them understand why it doesn't need to be that scary. Why, like, for example, if we establish the non-aggression principles law, we don't have to burn everything to the ground, and, you know, I mean, everything would carry on. Like tomorrow, everything would carry on exactly as it did today. The only
no, it wouldn't.
Is, well,
no, it wouldn't.
Okay, go on.
The men in power would not have the power they have.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
so that's the biggest problem right there, though.
Yeah, no, fair point. I shouldn't have said exactly.
They'll wipe you out. And I hate to say this lightly. They'll wipe you out before they let that happen. They've wiped out bigger men for less. And I hate to say that, but before they let you change the structure of that government, you'll be wiped out, Matthew. You'll be out, brother. Hey, whoop, where you go? Family don't even know where you at. You be in some holding cell, or you be on the news talking about you was planning some big old. So how do you? This is the problem right there. How do we get past that?
Well, we need to make it about, so it's not about any person as well, because I mean, that's the other thing about this idea. It's a very simple idea. It's a universal idea, and it doesn't matter if they wiped me out. If people started waking up to this idea and having this conversation on a kind of, it would serve them no purpose to wipe me out other than martyr me. You know what I mean? And maybe make more. I mean, at the moment, my biggest problem is that most people ignore me and don't pay any attention to what I'm saying. So if I'm not saying I want to get killed. Obviously, I've got family myself, and you know, I've got kids and all that. And that is the sort of thing that does, same as you, it does temper what I do in regards to the fact that, you know, I've got obviously, you know, think about those sort of things. But at the same time, the beauty of this project, if it ever got off the ground, at least, maybe at this stage, you know, it could be easily stifled by just taking me out. But if it ever got to a stage where more and more people were talking about it, embracing it, it would be too late to what, you know, the beautiful thing about ideas is you can't kill ideas. You can kill people, but you can't kill the ideas. And if the idea is simple and true enough, and you know, I don't champion this just because it's simple, but it is simple. It is beautifully simple. And it is something that, when I say only fascists would oppose it, I don't mean that, you know, only fascists would be like me and you, where that's how we want to live and that's the motto we already have. But what I mean is only fascists would actually want to violate our self-ownership, would actually oppose it in that regard, would say, no, I don't want the law being the non-aggression principle. I want to be able to, you know, initiate force against you. I want to be able to stop you using cannabis, for example, or I want to be able to tax you against your will for this program, or whatever else it is they might want to hold on to that they would lose if the non-aggression principle became law. The only people that would want to hold on to those things would be fascists. That's what I meant about, I understand there's a lot of people that aren't fascists that would be resistant to it. I didn't mean them. I meant the people that would actually be proper against it, like actually.
But yes, and listen, it will be folks like that. And let me tell you something. In every society, every community, every structure, you're gonna have your outlaws of that. So the people that you bring in, some of them are gonna take what you're saying and they're gonna turn it into their own resistance. You know what I mean? And then if your movement start growing, they'll even infiltrate it and make it y'all be as some type of anti-love thing. You know what I mean? And then you have people, public opinion. So the people, the fascists you say, or the people who just against it anyway, gonna gain support because they're gonna break your whole thing up from the inside. You know what I mean? When I tell you it's deeper than rap, the minute you take some traction and say you got 2,000 people, 3,000 people who thinking the same, 10,000 now they know you're a threat. Now the next 10,000, 100 of them gonna be agents. And the next 10,000, 500 gonna be infiltrators. And they're gonna go out there and they're gonna make your message sound weak, crazy, like Black Lives Matter or anything else. You know what I mean? They're gonna take that message and they're gonna seem like a terrorist group. And they're gonna turn your group into something other than what it is, because they got the money, the power, the men, and everything. Trust me. It's like, and this is why I say I love it, man. Look, I wish this world was built on that. You know, no victim, no crime. Look, nobody got no power over you unless you give them. Don't hurt nobody, you ain't got no problems. I wish that was the world we lived in so much, brother. I want to join you, man. But the problem is, the people, you must not met enough people. I know what the people will do. The people that you even bring in, man. Look, I study history from the Martin Luther Kings to the Black Panthers, Black history at that. And even white history I study. But I know everything that ever had legs that the people was for, they went in and infiltrated it and broke it up from the inside, man. And this is why they still in power. So God bless you. Tell me how I can support. Tell me how I can help your movement. I will, brother. But I already know they're going to cut you off from the legs.
Yeah, I mean, I can't actually dispute anything you're saying, because everything you're saying is 100% true. But the problem is I suppose my resistance to it, not disagreeing with it, but my resistance to it in a sense of saying, well, I'm still going to carry on with what I'm doing, because the problem is those problems will be a problem no matter what we try to do. You know, human nature, corruptibility, all of those things are always going to be a problem. So there's no escaping that. But what we can do is unite on a solution that is as immune from that as it possibly could be, which means not, but still, you know, as as uncorruptible as it can be. And and that's why I love the simplicity of it, because the simpler you keep it, the harder it is to corrupt. You know, for example, if the Black Lives Matter movement started in a kind of all lives matter ethos of saying, look, you know, like, or, you know, Black Lives Matter too as well, then you wouldn't have be able to have other people on the other side trying to twist it and say, oh, so you're saying only Black Lives Matter, and then you get people that are trying to push that, you know, and then it all becomes a mess, as you talk about.
Divide and conquer.
Exactly. Divide and conquer. That has been their greatest weapon against us. And I'm trying to think, okay, well, what would be our greatest weapon against it? And it's not immune from any of the things you've mentioned, because all of those things you mentioned would be valid no matter what solution we could possibly come up with. But the beauty of this is it's the exact opposite to divide and conquer. It's unite and be free. You know, it's like they're dividing us through all of these different ways. And there's so many different ways. Like I say, the left and the right thing is a perfect example, because I mean, I don't consider myself left wing or right wing, and I have quite I find most sensible people don't. But when I listen to people arguing on those sides, I find it so frustrating, because I kind of disagree with them both, but I also see little valid points on both sides, and they just talk past each other. And I think, do you know what? Something like this could just cut through all of that bullshit, because the left-wing people don't want a right-wing government that's going to violate their rights, that's going to spend their taxes on money they don't want it on, etc., etc. And the right-wing people don't want a left-wing government. I know this is an overly simplistic, but this is the basic crux of it. And my point is under our current system, the left wing and the right wing have good reason to fear and despise each other, because whichever side has the power are going to screw over the other side. My point is in this system, no one has that power anymore. No one's allowed to have that power. I know it's not a magic. It's not, you know, making the non-aggression principle law doesn't magically guarantee that everyone obeys it, but at least we're defining our society with a consistent, objective, and universal standard of law that defines crime in a way that can't be corrupted. That people can't say, oh, well, you know, this is illegal because so many people voted on it, or this is illegal. No, it will be so simple. Does it violate self-ownership? If the answer is definitely no, then it's definitely not a crime.
Let me ask you this question. I don't mean to cut you off. What would happen in a situation where something happened that wasn't so common in everyday life? I don't know. I can't give a proper example. But say, you know how you say crime is crime, it's going to be as simple what's crime and what's not crime, right? Say something, because a number of these always happen in life, where this is why we got Supreme Court and you got to go up there. But my point is, say something happened where it's not straight defined as a crime, but it's not no victim. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Like
a gray area.
When you get to that gray area, what happens? Thank you. Perfect example. When you get to that gray area, what's the step then? I want to hear this one.
Okay, I knew that was coming because I already have the answer for it.
All right.
Okay. The Nations of Sanity idea isn't just to make the non-aggression principle the law. It's to establish the law through a three-part peace agreement. You know, I said about making it the law through a peace agreement. And it's not just a one-part agreement, say, right, we're making the non-aggression principle the law, and that's that. We're doing it through a three-part peace agreement, and the three parts go as follows, and this will kind of answer your question. So part one is just the basic agreement to establish the non-aggression principles of law. Part two is called lines in the sand, where we set limits of tolerance over the differing interpretations of the non-aggression principle. And then part three is about agreeing rightful ownership, again, based on the non-aggression principle. Now, part two is what's relevant to what you're talking about, because as you rightly point out, no matter how black and white the non-aggression principle is as a principle, there's always going to be fuzzy edges, there's always going to be grey areas, which is fine. But what we can do, and I have an article on my website that goes into this problem, because it is a valid problem, but it's not an ending problem. It's something we can solve. And the way we solve it is, the example I give, I use the metaphor of desert and grassland. So I say, imagine you're walking from through a geographical region from the grassland, and you're going towards the desert. Okay, you can clearly define the desert, and you can clearly define the grassland, and you know that they're different from each other. Just like we can clearly define the non-aggression principle violations that definitely are and definitely aren't. You know. But in between, you've got this grey area. You've got this area that's hard to define. So like, you know, in the desert grassland example, you've got this area where the grass starts becoming arid.
So the minute you cross over to the minute you make it there, that grey area.
Exactly, yeah. So my point is just because we've got this grey area, that doesn't mean we lose the black and white. So just because we have this grey area that's hard to define, that doesn't mean we can't define the desert when we're definitely in the desert. So what I'm saying is what we'll do is with this part 2 is we're going to draw lines in the sand where we say, okay, here is where you're definitely violating the non-aggression principle, okay? Objectively, this is definitely the desert, to use that example. Sand all around me. This is that. So by this universal law, this universal standard, you're violating that law, you're breaking the law, nice and simple. And then on the other end, you've got this definitely not, and you're definitely okay, and all the rest of it. This grey area in between, what we're going to say is, as part of the universal law, we can't enforce the grey area. We can only enforce the black and white. And the reason for that is because if I can't say, as a matter of like, you know, black and white certainty, that you are violating the non-aggression principle, and I use force against you, then I'm guilty of violating the non-aggression principle if I'm against you, if you haven't. So the point is what we're going to do is we're going to have like a low resolution version of the non-aggression principle where you've got this black and white standard, you know, where you can easily define, and then the grey area in between you don't enforce according to the international, like this universal standard. But what you do have is you can have rules within voluntary collectives. So say, for example, I'm part of a voluntary collective, right? And you're part of a different voluntary collective, right? In the grey area, I can't enforce anything against you. So if you're definitely violating the non-aggression principle and you're part of a different collective or different society or whatever, you're definitely violating the non-aggression principle, then you're committing a crime and I can use force against you. But if you're in that grey area, then I can't, because I can't say you're definitely violating non-aggression principle. It's not part of this universal standard. But what I can do is in my little society is we can have additional standards that only apply to people that agree to those rules. You know, just like how I can say to you, if I invite you in my home, you've got to take your shoes off. You know, it's just something you're agreeing to be part of, or come in my house or be part of a club or whatever it is. You know, so these higher standards, we're not imposing those on people because, like I say, because they're grey areas, we can't impose them on everybody. But so we would have to establish them as part of voluntary collectives where they only apply to people that are part of those voluntary collectives. And you can obviously encourage and discourage people through peaceful means to be part of those collectives or not be.
What happens? What happens when two people oppose each other in that grey area? Who decides who's right?
Okay.
This is my question.
Okay, so
the grey area you're in.
If you're in the grey area,
right?
If you're in the grey area, it's no crime. Basically, we've got to say that if it's not definitely a crime, so basically what we're saying, like with the just go back to the desert grassland thing. So I'm not explaining this very well. Just go back to the desert grassland thing. If we say the desert represents what's definitely a violation of the non-aggression principle, and the grassland represents what's definitely not, and what I'm saying is if you're in the area in between, it's the same as if you're in the grassland. We're saying the line. We're saying the line that we draw is the line in the sand that says you're definitely violating the non-aggression principle. That's the universal standard. And then what I'm saying is the grey area in between that. We can't enforce that as part of the universal standard.
It's the grass area.
Yeah,
it's the grass area.
I didn't explain that very well.
If you want to volunteer to come over here, that's fine. But it's the grass area. So the gray area isn't the gray area. It's the grass area.
Yeah, basically, we're saying the grey area is the same. So what I'm saying is if you're not in the black, if you're not violating the non-aggression principle as a black and white standard, then you're not violating the non-aggression principle according to this universal law. If you're in the grey area, that's the same as not violating it at all, according, you know. But what I'm saying is that grey area, rather than just leaving it, we can still have rules within those grey areas. You know, but those rules would only apply to people that agree to be part of those rules, you know. So like, so I mean, an example I use is like things like age of consent, because the important thing about this black and white thing is just because we agree and understand that there's grey areas, we can't let the existence of grey areas destroy the black and white. We can't say, like with the desert and grassland thing, we can't say, okay, just because there's this grey area in between, that doesn't mean you should be able to walk into the middle of the desert and claim it's the grassland, you know. And it's the same thing with this non-aggression principle. That's why we need to preserve the black and white standard, but we can only preserve the black and white standard. Once we start getting into the grey, people then it becomes subjective, and that's when people are starting imposing their own interpretations and violating self-ownership. And that's why it all comes back to self-ownership, because the answer to every question over how we apply law always comes back to self-ownership. And the reason why we can't enforce the grey area is because I don't have a right to say that my interpretation of the non-aggression principle in this grey area is more valid than yours. So no one has. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, I'm listening. I'm gonna let you finish, and I got a question. I'm listening.
Well, I was just going to say that because of that, we can only enforce the non-aggression principle against each other when it is objectively a violation of the non-aggression principle. If it's grey area stuff, then who am I to say my interpretation means more than yours? But just because of that grey area, that doesn't mean there's not this line with the black and white where, you know, forget interpretations then. If you're definitely violating it, you're definitely, you know, violating it.
See, the problem I have with law and with your standard is this. Sometimes it's my word against yours. And when you say you're definitely violating something, you would need proof. So what you're saying is, with no proof, you could just be a criminal all day, just be good at what you do. Don't have no proof, right? Or is that what you're saying? Because if I come to you and say, hey, Matthew, I know we have this system, this dude just violated me, you know, and everybody get to rule themselves, but he violated me, and I need somebody to, he didn't even pay for this. He said, I ain't violating him. I don't know what he's talking about. Who decides that right there for you? I'm confused on that one.
Well, this is the problem. The thing is, you've got that problem no matter what. You've always got a problem with burden of proof. You know, if I allege, even in this system, if I say that you've committed a crime against me, my word against yours doesn't count for anything. You know, so you'd have that problem no matter what system you have. The point is there would be nobody with any overall authority. So it would have to be proven, and you'd obviously have to have diligence, because I don't see how it could work any other way. Because why should it work any other way? If you accused me of something you didn't have any proof, why should you be able to take action against? You know what I mean? So for me, it's logical that the only way it can work, you know, like that innocent till proven guilty thing. And it's like, well, okay, well, if he alleges a crime occurred, but he has no proof, well, of course we can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't see, for me, the alternative is a non-starter. Does that make sense?
But see, proof is a difficult word. So when we talk about proof, you can say what you think proof is, okay? But you've been in many courtrooms, you've seen court action, right? You know proof is behold to somebody who believes what you're saying, all right? So what is proof? If it's me and him and I'm telling you he violated me, he's saying he didn't, or vice versa. How do we establish what proof actually is in your...
Well, we have to do it. I mean, this is something that's, and this is going to be a problem no matter what you do, no matter what society you have. One thing we're going to have to do is have an agreement on basic reality. So the point about saying that there's no person with the authority to say this is how it's going to be or this is how it's going to be means that we are going to have to prove it kind of like, you know, as objectively as we can on like a scientific consensus. So like, let's say, for example, the crime depended on whether or not the moon was real or not. You know, and like, it's like, you know, it's like kind of, but like something.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? It's like when you're saying, well, what if you lived in a world where everyone just started denying that the moon was real? It's like, well, I can't do anything about that, but that's a problem you'd have no matter what kind of society you live in. You've got to be able to agree on reality. It's like one person said to me about the non-aggression principle. They used the example of saying, okay, well, what if you had a religion where you believed that people didn't own themselves because they were created by God, and you also believed that God was talking to you and telling you the will that you wanted to do to these people against their will, and you don't care about themselves, you know, and all these things. It's like, okay, but yeah, but they have a totally different understanding of reality, and like my solution doesn't solve that. I mean, there's plenty of things that my solution doesn't solve, and basic human nature and arguing over basic objective reality are things that I'm not pretending I can solve. But I don't think anyone can solve those problems. I don't think they're really solvable problems. So I'm looking at what can be solved, and what can be solved is, yeah, we'd still have the problem with burden of proof and all the rest of it, but what we wouldn't have a problem of is agreeing what is a crime. So if it's agreed that you robbed me or murdered me or someone or whatever, then it's agreed that you commit a crime. Proving
that's the problem. Who does the agreeing?
But if I say, oh, well, Quentin was smoking weed, it doesn't matter whether I can prove it or not. It's not a crime. You know, that's my point. So it's like we still have the issue about the burden of proof, and we still have the diligence of having an agreed upon reality, and those are things that we are going to have. Like,
But
I'm
see,
not. Go on, sorry.
and I know, I'm sorry, brother. And I get the part of what ain't a crime and what isn't a crime. The things that concern me is what is a crime. And when you say, hey, I seen Quentin smoking weed, which isn't a crime, which is a crime, what happens? Who controls that? Because look, I know you think that you don't need enforcers or somebody to enforce your.
Oh, no, I think you do.
Or you don't need enforcers.
I think you do, yeah.
Different than these people that you complain about when you be, because listen, the more you have to enforce, the more you're gonna enforce, which means you become that dictator you was trying to get away. I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to figure out how do you stop yourself or your people or your government from becoming those dictators we just got away from.
Because the whole point of this and the whole idea of making the non-aggression principle the law is to draw a line, just like I said about dividing between leaders and rulers and saying, look, you can still have leaders without rulers. You can still have law enforcement. You can still have like people that enforce law without having people that enforce arbitrary rules of a ruler. You know, like it's about separating, because the beauty of the non-aggression principle and the reason why I say it's so perfect as a law and so kind of like nothing else should be or could be law is because the beauty of it is that enforcing the non-aggression principle doesn't require any violation of the non-aggression principle. You know, like if the point is, like, if the non-aggression principle is the law and I said to you, Quentin, I'm not going to let you smoke weed and I'm going to use force against you to stop you, I'm the criminal. I'm violating.
Yeah,
right?
It becomes the criminal.
It becomes sort of self-evident that that's the case. You know.
What about the case of rape? Let me give you a prime example.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I hate to say it, but we have to be explicit because in your world, we have to get down to the basic of everything.
Yeah.
12-year-old girl, okay? 50-year-old man having sex with her. She loves it. She might like it. You know what I mean? But is it wrong or is it right?
Well, it's wrong, and I know what you're saying about like the objective thing. This is where that grey area comes.
She's consenting.
Because yeah, but a child can't consent, and this is where
but you see what you're doing though. What you're saying is you're still making it legal for you to have some power over people, because what you're saying, a child can't consent. Who are you to say a child can't consent?
Well, it's part of how
they should be able to. I'm not.
No, I know.
I'm not telling you I want pedophiles to run the world. I hate it. I'm just trying to define how do you structure that one when you say she can't consent. She's not free. She's not free.
I understand what you're saying, and just to clarify, I don't think I know you're not advocating.
Yeah, I'm not. Trust me, look at my record, brother.
Yeah, I know.
I got daughters. I'm just wanting to know in this society, because you have to break all this down.
Well, this is the point of this black and white thing, because there is because first of all, you start with the premise. Children can't consent, adults can. You say, okay, well, who am I to say that? Well, it's how we define what a child is and what an adult is. We define a child as a developing person, someone who, like, you know, the reason why children have guardians, like their parents, is because they're not responsible for themselves. And one of the things about self-ownership, because this is, you know, this question's been asked me about children, and they say, well, do children have self-ownership? And I say, yes, they do. But the problem is they lack the understanding to exercise their self-ownership. It's kind of like, it's almost like, I mean, one person used the example of saying it's almost like they're sleeping and they'll kind of wake up when they become of a certain age, when they have the understanding to be able to take responsibility for themselves. Now, they always had that self-ownership, even before they were able to take responsibility for themselves. But because the thing about self-ownership is rights and responsibility go hand in hand. For example, if you were too drunk to be able to drive your car, you weren't like cognitively available, I would be able to say to you, look, you can't take responsibility for yourself. You're out of your mind. You don't know what you're doing. So you don't have the right.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but if I rebutted you and tell you I'm fine, who are you to tell me I can't? This is the problem right there. Because I'm telling you, I don't care how out of my mind you can't judge that. It's like saying I'm incompetent. Maybe I am, right? But who gave you the power to make that decision?
Okay, I see what you're saying. That's a fair point. But I suppose the point I'm making is that's the claim that would have to be made. Like for me to be able to say, okay, I'm going to do something against Quentin's consent.
Liberty.
yeah, for me to be able to do that, I would have to make the claim that you're not actually at the wheel, so to speak, because I can't override your self-ownership. I mean, in fact, here's a good example to use that the at the wheel thing. Let's take your self-ownership as like ownership of a car. So the only person who has the right to drive your car, just like the only person who has the right to drive you as a person and rule your life, is you. So what I'm saying is, so like you've got your car, but if you're unable to drive your car, and your car, let's say your car was speeding or slipping down an embankment, and you're unable to drive it. So I, knowing that you would want me to act on your behalf because of like there is a certain level of subjectivity with regards to making reasonable assumptions. Like it's a little bit like I use the example of if you're about to get hit by a bus, if I ran out and pushed you out of the way without your consent, would I be violating the non-aggression principle? And the answer to that is no. But the reason is something called implicit consent. If you're not able to give explicit consent, because in that situation, there's not time to say, Matthew, please help me. It's like, it's a split second thing. But there's other examples where like you might be in a coma or something and there's like a life-saving operation and someone's got to make consent on your behalf. In those situations, we invoke what we call implicit consent, where we're saying, look, we can't get your consent to know what you really want us to do, but we can make the reasonable assumption that you would want us to, in this case, save your life, push you out of the way. So what would normally be assault, I don't normally have the right to push you out of the way, but because it's reasonable to assume you would want me to push you out of the way to save your life because you're about to get hit by a bus.
You'll give yourself that power to push me out the way.
Well, it's not about
giving yourself the power over me, is what you're saying.
Well,
because you believe.
It's not about the reason why I'm resistant to say giving myself power over you is because I'm not giving myself power over you. I'm acting on your behalf, and I can only do it when you're in a situation like we can only invoke implicit consent when explicit consent can't be given. So, like the only way, like for example, if you said to me, I have a deal, this guy's going to run me over, it's something I'm doing, I don't want you to push me out of the way, and I push you out of the way, then I'm obviously violating your consent. But without that knowledge, it would be reasonable for me to assume. There was
I get it. Yeah,
it would be
you was saving life, you was doing your duty, you was preserving.
Exactly.
But to you is this though, when you think, let's do this. We brothers, all right? You've known me your whole life, right? Now, all day one day I'm acting strange. I'm just not the same as you know me, right? And I'm making decisions that you just don't quite agree with. This dude never make these decisions, yet I'm watching him make these decisions. How many decisions do I make before you step in and say, I'm taking control over you because you're not you? Because that's opening Pandora's box when you give somebody the option to decide when somebody's rational or not, right?
Yeah.
So now you decided I'm not rational in your mindset, right? When do your power exist? Now you get the power to take over me?
Well, this is the point. It's not about you. Like, I don't have the power to take over you. It's not about having that power. It's about saying, look, we're going to act upon a reasonable assumption that you would want us to do it. So I'm not like, well, like, for example, to use the example of like the car thing again, I'm not saying I have the power to use Quentin's car. I'm saying only Quentin has that power. But because he's unable to exercise it right now for whatever reason, and I am able to exercise it, it's reasonable for me to assume that he would want me to do this on his behalf. Like, so I'm not claiming any power to do anything against your will. I'm saying, no, the power's all yours, but it's reasonable to assume in this situation that you would want me to do this for you. You can only kind of invoke implicit consent when you've got a real solid case for saying it's not reasonable for me to assume that just because you're acting strangely, I can assume you're no longer yourself and take control over you. But it is reasonable to assume that if you were in like a coma, or if you were like visibly like unfortunately, there's a judgment call here. There's going to be a kind of, again, we are going to have to agree on reality. I can't escape that. And you can throw these scenarios at me and I won't be able to able to overcome them. But my point is I don't think they are overcomable. I don't think it's anything unique to my project. I don't think these are basic problems in, if someone commits a crime
in everyday life.
Yeah, it's just basic reality.
But I would like you to think of it in this way though, because once you set a bar or a limit, it comes down. You had to keep making adjustments with the flow because you had to give in here and give in there because you gave in here and gave in there. And what I was saying, what I was just really meaning is, once you start saying that it's a certain place or case where you can take ownership of somebody else because you or a group of people suggested that they wasn't capable of making those decisions themselves for whatever reason, whether they was or whether they wasn't, okay? Because there's going to be some gray areas in there. Some of them going to be clear cut. They can't make the decision. And some of them going to be like, bro, I can make this decision. And you say, no, you can't make the decision.
And what did I say about the gray area?
I get you. It's still the grass. Okay. All right. We'll go with that, brother.
But that's a good point. That's a good point, though. And that is exactly why that's how we have to treat the gray area, because of the exact point you made. That's why we can only enforce when it's black and white. Because the problem is when we enforce in the grey area, that's when we run the risk of violating the non-aggression principle ourselves. So that's exactly, I mean, funnily enough, so although that problem you've mentioned isn't something I can solve, it does highlight the importance of what I have put in place for being there. Because that's exactly why we have to have that attitude with the grey area. We can't enforce it because who am I to say? And who are you to say? We're not. That's why we have to literally have a scientific consensus on reality. Like the world is round, the moon is over there, you know, gravity is up, you know, it's like if I go up and punch someone and I say, no, that didn't really happen. It was all an illusion.
Didn't really hurt. That was a tap.
Exactly. Or I believe in a God who says I own that person or whatever. You know, these things are things that I can't do anything about. And the same with proving crimes and all of that's still problems that we're going to have. We're still going to have burden. We're still going to have the burden of proof. We're still going to have human fallibility and all of those problems. But what we will have what we won't have is a corrupt system that's rotten to the core, that makes up laws based on arbitrary whims and you know, and often benefiting various criminal enterprises and whatnot.
I definitely agree. You made me understand the gray area. When you reiterated the gray area part, I completely understood you. But I just believe no system you can have that it won't be corrupt. There is not a system that created that corruption don't come. Because the more you give, the more they take. And this is my philosophy. The more power at your hand, Matthew, I know you mean good. I know you can go to Congress, or I'm going to say Congress because I'm American, right? But I know you can go to Congress and you go in there and say, I'm swearing to uphold the Constitution. I'm going to do right by all my people out there. And the minute you sit around these people, when you learn the rules and how this go, the more corrupt you're going to be. And yeah, you're going to have morals and you're going like, damn, and the more you keep doing it, the more you know how I go, man. Corruption just, it pours your soul. So you can have the best intentions in life. But once you get in that system, and that's all systems, the corruption is going to come. And I was just trying to measure how do you stop the corruption in your system? Because whether you know it or not, it's just another system.
Sure,
system, right? And in any system, men like you, like me, are going to want to feel empowered, or I'm a big guy and you and somebody got to be here. So you know how life works, brother. And you can never stop that. So I'm afraid that when we get into that system, then what happens? Because then you're gonna have men who gonna just start making it up with it. You know, they can take advantage of anybody in that system. Then, right? You don't agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I say, I'm not pretending that this is going to create some kind of utopia. And like I say, and all the problems you've laid out are problems that are just going to be there, like as you say, under any system, no matter what we.
It's there now. So yeah,
exactly. And nothing about my system is going to magically guarantee anything. Nothing, you know, making the non-aggression principle law won't magically guarantee that it's going to be followed and all of that. But the point of doing it that way, and like when you talk about, well, there's always going to be people that want to vie for power. Their problem that they will have in my society, that I'm advocating my society.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
The problem that they will have is there's no power for them to get. And the power that they want will be illegal. That's the point. Like the point of the system that they have right now is like you've got these people that want to rule over people. Well, there's legitimate ways that they can rule over people. In my society, there will be no legitimate way for them to rule people. And like I say, it's something, yeah, people will still want to do that. There'll be people trying to do that, but they will have to do it in a clandestine way. And I'm not saying that will mean they'll fail, but it just means that it will be harder for them, because right now, if I want to rule over people, I'll become a politician. There's a legitimate way that I do it. In my society, if I want to do that, well, where do I go? There's no ruling bodies. It's illegal to rule people. So if I want to start doing that, I'm going to have to do it secretly. I'm going to have to become a criminal because I live in a society that deems me a criminal for wanting to rule over other people. You know, whereas we live in a society where, you know, people are deemed criminals for smoking weed, but they're not deemed criminals for wanting to enslave their fellow man. You know, so that's that's the difference. But I took your points are perfectly valid as well, though, because, and it's worth remembering. But one of the things I will say is, and one of the reasons why I call it Nations of Sanity, is I always emphasize this isn't utopia that I'm proposing, and it's not going to magically fix this. It's not going to feed.
You ain't offering heaven.
Exactly. It's not going to
get away from the hill.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to feed the starving. It's not going to home the homeless. It's not going to fix it's not going to fix human nature by a long shot. But what it will do is create a society where we have a sane, consistent, objective, logical, and universal standard of law, where crime isn't what you decide it is, or what I decide it is, or what a democratic majority decide it is. It's what's objectively defined by a simple moral truth that we're united on.
I know you know more about common law. You under the Magna Carta, right? Or what? Ain't that y'all? What you per se Constitution, right? Is that not what you follow?
Well, again, I mean, it's similar. I mean, when I talk to these people say, "Oh, that's common law," and it is. It's the same as common law, but I don't do this common law business that people do over here because that's.
Tell me why.
Well, because they're still appealing to a ruling authority. What they're saying is I don't have to obey your statutes they're saying to the current government, they're saying, we don't have to obey your statutes because they're not valid laws and they violate common law, which was set out by the Magna Carta, which was basically established by lords. But that's still ruling authorities. They're still saying, we're not ruled by you, we're ruled by these people instead. And they have the Magna Carta and we're following those rules. And I'm saying.
But what is common law? Meaning common law just means.
Well, it does, but the problem is,
right?
Well, it does, yeah. I mean, what I'm advocating is what we all know of as common law. But the problem is a lot of people that invoke the Magna Carta, they're invoking a document that's established by a ruling authority. Like what they're saying is common law is valid because of the Magna Carta, and I'm saying no,
because of somebody told you.
Yeah, and I'm saying common law is valid, but not because of the Magna Carta, not because of these lords that wrote this document. The common law is valid because you own yourself. And that's what we're doing.
But does it matter because of what? Long as it's valid? Doesn't matter if because of God or Jesus or Allah or Buddha, long as it exists. So does it really matter what because of? Long as it's the same principle? I mean, that's what I'm getting from you, right? Only thing I can think of when I hear what you're saying is common law.
Yeah.
You think that, hey, if I do something to you, then I'll take care of it. Other than that, get out of my face.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically. But all I'm saying, the only thing I'm saying that's different from other people that advocate common law is I'm saying this common law just comes from the understanding that everyone owns themselves rather than from the Magna Carta or from, like some people might even invoke other, like I don't really know how it works with the American Constitution and I'm not an expert on that. But like I know that the people over here that talk about sovereignty and common law, they're always saying they're invoking the Magna Carta. They're saying, no, look, we stand under the Magna Carta. This is what rules us. And my point is no, that
you want to throw those rules out the window too.
Exactly. I want to say, what I'm advocating is the same as common law. But my point is I'm not saying that common law is the law because the Magna Carta said so. I'm saying common law is the law because that is the only law that's valid if we accept that we all own each other, that we all own our own selves.
If I may, right, the Constitution of the United States, and I know you probably don't know much about it, maybe you do, wasn't written for me. I'm a black man, as you can see. Wasn't written for me. But in that document, it tells me it means me. Does that make sense? So I live by the Constitution of the United States. When I tell you I live by it, because without it, then we just running around talking about common law. Right? And I get it, right? But it's hard to explain, man. So I would love to throw the Constitution out and just say common law, right? Everybody respect each other, treat how you want to be treated, and nobody got a problem, right? As long as I don't hurt you, Matthew, man, you cool, right? But the problem is, like you say, you're going to have those facets or little people you say that's always against something who's going to, look, speech, for example. the shit you talking can get you locked up. You know, when I tell you that, hundreds of years ago, they threw you in the cage. I don't know how England is now and how they put people on terrorist lists. I don't know how y'all work. But the stuff you talking puts you on the list, brother. And I'm sure whatever list they got over there, you on it, you know? And when they come rounding people up, they come and get you too, because you talking something other than what they want. But my point is this, man. It's hard to, I'm trying not to be explicit. It's hard to try to get where you going, man, when you have these people who will, you know, just do what they, bro, I get you. And I'm talking in circles, but I'm telling you, man, I'm leaving it alone, man.
I know what you're saying, man. And like I say, I can't even disagree with a lot of what you're saying, because you know what you're saying is true. I suppose, like I say, my only rebuttal to it is everything you're saying would be true no matter what solution we were talking about. It would be true no matter what. So I think we've got to kind of almost transcend the problems that we can't overcome. Things that, like, you know, the things that you're talking about that are just going to be true no matter what. We're like, okay, well, they can't be reasons not to pursue this course of action, because we know that they would be true no matter what. So if there are reasons not to pursue this course of action, they would be reasons not to pursue any course of action and just simply do nothing. So my point is even though those reasons are valid, it's not like we should ignore them, because they're true and we can't escape that reality. But what we need to do is accept that that reality is a reality no matter what. So what can we do? What's our best guard against that? What's our best defense against the divide and rule? The best defense against the divide and rule is its exact opposite. It's to create a society where we're not divided, because we're united on this one thing. And it's only one thing. It's such a simple, basic thing. If I'm not saying we can unite on this, but I'm saying if humanity can unite on anything, it's this. I'm not saying we'll unite.
I agree.
But if we can unite on anything at all, it's this. If we're gonna overthrow our criminal governments, we probably won't. But if there's any way to do it at all, it's something along the lines of this. And that's why I'm kind of pushing this, because I'm saying, look,
I love it.
Our cause is almost hopeless. Look, man, I'm not expecting you to have. I do it. This is my kind of almost, I've taken it on as my life's work, and I don't really believe it's going to happen because it's such an impossible task. I'm trying to do something that's never. Well, I'm not personally, but I'm trying to say, let's all do something that humanity has never done in history, in recorded history.
I believe in you, brother.
Humanity has never done this, so I'm not expecting you to not be skeptical about it happening and stuff like that.
No, I'm not skeptical about the ideas. I'm skeptical about the implementation of it.
Yeah.
Meaning, I don't know how you stop a government and just have them relinquish their power magically.
Well,
just out of thin air, and you telling them that they can't get that money out of thin air no more. Whew.
But the thing is like one thing you alluded to earlier when you talked about how all these kings and queens don't have nothing if they don't have people to enforce it. And even though I'm not going to target the sort of people that enforce these laws, like the police, I'm targeting everybody else, and this will bleed.
Who is everybody else?
Well, everybody who's not, like I say, an overt fascist, because there's going to be plenty of people that are going to be resistant to this and all the rest of it. But I tell you, this is a little example I've got. I don't know if you've heard of the term voluntarist and statist, but what I'm talking about is in the lines of being a voluntarist, like, voluntary societies and all the rest of it. And people that talk along the lines or identify as voluntarists or anarchists or whatever, or even libertarians, some call themselves, right? The opposite to that, the people that still believe in government and still want rulers and all the rest of it, they call them statists. And they kind of say, look, this is the world. The world is voluntarists and statists. And they say the problem is that voluntarists are such a tiny minority that it seems like an impossible fight, because we've got voluntarists probably make up less than 1% of the population. And then they're saying, and then everyone else is statists. And I'm saying, no, everyone else isn't statists. What you've got is a tiny percentage of active voluntarists, people who are actively thinking this way. But you've also only got a tiny percentage of people who are actively against this, who are actively plotting against it, who want to rule and violate and all the rest of it.
Yes, because everybody else just don't know better.
Exactly. And my point is if we can reach those people, I think we'll find out that more of them would be voluntarist than statist if faced with that choice, if faced with that conversation.
I know this to be a fact, more of them will be. The problem is if you can help them get over their fears, because that's all it is, man. I promise you. Sometimes ideas is the barrier, right? I get that, right? Sometimes me and your ideas just gonna have a barrier, right? But the really big basis of most people I find to believe is the fear of what will happen to them if you lose, if the cause don't win, if they're not on the right side. You know what I mean? And it's a scary feeling not to be on the right side.
That's true. I mean, I suppose I probably take more effort, or I probably put more effort into trying to allay their fears over if we were successful, because that's the other thing. People fear, well, because they don't know what this new society would look like, and there's the fear of the unknown and chaos. And so I often shy away from words like anarchism because of all of the, you know, the things that conjures into people's minds. But one of the things I try to do with my Nations of Sanity project, beyond just this basic idea, is talk about how it would work, how it could be implemented, like the implications. Because and one of the points I always make is I always say, look, it's important to understand that it doesn't matter what the solutions are on how we would work in a free society. It's wrong. It's a little bit like when people were talking about abolishing slavery and someone said, well, how are we going to pick the cotton? It's like, well, it doesn't matter how we pick the cotton. Slavery is wrong. And then the solution, but at the same time, it is still worth talking about what a society post-slavery would look like, so people can understand that everything's not going to burn to the ground and all.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah.
So, and we do a similar thing with this. We basically say, okay, well, we can have a conversation about what do we do when we don't have a ruling government that has the authority to tax you against your will. For example, how are we going to pay for the roads? Well, it's similar. That question, first of all, we need to be clear. That question is the same as how do we pick the cotton without slavery? It doesn't matter if we don't have an answer, because the morality of what we have to do is still the same.
Well, my wife said the same thing today. How do you pay for the road? And everybody got different philosophies. I don't think taxes go towards the road, so they'll pay for the road. They print money every single day for roads. Trust me, it'll pay for. So I'm with you, man. I think everything should be volunteer system. You should opt in or opt out. You know what I mean? I get it.
Sorry, just to cut in though quickly, because one of the things, because you're right, and I agree with you, but the other thing I like to say is when people talk about, oh yeah, but like I've had conversations where I talk about how, like, you don't need a regulated market for this, and this, but then they'll say, yeah, but what about this, and this, where I think you do need a regulated market, and I say, yeah, but what you have to understand is you can still have a regulated market. Like, people seem to think, and this is something we need to try and overcome in people's minds. People seem to think that all the things that government provide cannot be provided any other way. They seem to think that if we didn't have government taxing us and building roads, we wouldn't be able to build roads. And one thing, apart from the fact that we can in the ways that you alluded to, but also we can still have a regulated market. And I use the example of, this is about the regulated market and also taxation, because I say, okay, we have our Nations of Sanity revolution tomorrow, non-aggression principles law, government is overthrown and turned into a voluntary collective. We still have, because at the moment government regulates the market, right? So tomorrow,
what's the regulated? I understand in context what's a regulated market. What do you mean when you say regulate the market? Because I'm curious on what you want to regulate. Because I'm for all the regulation. It's a problem. So I want to know what you want to regulate. What is it you're trying to regulate?
Well, I'm not trying to regulate anything, but what I'm saying is you can still have regulation, because right now the government regulates the market. So we have a regulated market, and then we have a black market, the unregulated market, which is illegal. Now, what I'm saying is in a free society, you can still have a regulated market. So if you want that, if you want it, but you don't have to have it. And then businesses can operate either as a regulated business or as a non-regulated business. Now, in the real world, most people wouldn't really want, like, let's put it this way. If I'm buying some vegetables off some guy I know down the road, I don't care that he's not a regulated supplier. But if I'm buying vegetables off some supermarket or some supplier who I don't know personally, I want him to be a regulated supplier. So there's plenty of demand for a regulated market.
I get I like that idea.
You know what I mean? So it's a little bit like, I mean, the one example that was given to me was
pretty much what you're saying, you approved by the government. He's approved by the government and he's not. You can buy from either one.
Yeah.
I approve him and I don't approve him. This is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, because basically the freedom to not have to operate in a regulated market is the exact same freedom that you have to operate in a regulated market. You know, that's the point. Like, because people get the wrong end of the stick. You say, well, look, we shouldn't be forced into these things. Doesn't mean we don't have them. You know, like I want to get rid of forced taxation. We have a national health system in England. I'm quite confident that in a free society, we would still have a national health system because most people in this country want a free to use national health system. So it would probably be a lot more funded, probably be a lot better funded under such a system.
They was allowed to just opt into it.
Exactly, because currently most of the country want the NHS to be funded better than it currently is, and instead their taxes are going on all these things that they don't even want funding. Whereas in a free society, all of these people that want a national health service, myself included, can contribute to one, but because they have the power to not, if they don't want to, they would have more control over it because they could say, well, look, this isn't operating how I want, and if you don't start operating how I want, I'm not going to you know, I'm not
financially provide the things I do.
Exactly. But the problem is, under our current system, we have a system where people don't get the healthcare they want, and they've still got to pay for the system that they don't want to even be a part of. And we have no control over it, and our governments are destroying our national health service. And it's precisely because it's in a coercive system. So a lot of the things that people fear to lose, and this is the thing about the fear, when you say about how do you deal with people's fears, you need to show them how their fear is misplaced. Because the things they fear to lose, they're more likely to lose under our current system, even though they currently have them, than they are under what I'm proposing. And if they want to save these things that they currently think can only be provided by NHS, they're better off, currently are only provided by the government. If they want to save these things, they have more chance of saving them without a ruling government controlling them. Because when a ruling government controls it and is dealing with stolen money, the corruption and the bureaucracy and all the bloated wastes of money is inevitable because they don't have to operate in any other way. You know, so that's part of the challenge of what I'm trying to do, is try to alleviate people's fears by helping them understand that they need to be afraid of what the government's doing, not of what this could possibly be, you know?
So can I give you a suggestion, or just suggestion, not you personally, but period? You should never target those who haven't been through the system. What I mean is this. New cop watchers and auditors are born every day. You know why? Because their rights was violated. Because they was raped on the side of the road. Because the cops did something. And meaning, you'll pull more people in who's been neglected by that system than you would people who haven't. Meaning, just to talk to everybody is fine, right? You'd be like, oh, I'm spreading the message, right? And I'm hoping somebody come and listen, right? You're pulling more numbers finding the people who's been violated, if that makes sense, you know? When I reach out and I try to convert somebody into somebody with a camera and turn them into what I think they should be or whatever, I look for the ones who's been already damaged. You know why? Because they're more susceptible to what I'm saying. They know what I'm talking about. So this is why your friends and family kind of reject the idea, and not just you personally. It's my friends and family do. Oh, it ain't happened to me. I got a cousin that told me systemic racism don't exist in America. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I've lived it. I know for a fact it exists. But he's black as me, don't even think it exists. So it's because, you know what I mean? He haven't been exposed to it as much as I have. And it'd be a hard time for me to convert him, wouldn't it? And he'd be, hey, bro, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see it. But I can go find that dude who go through it every week, and I can bring him to my team, and he can go find 10 more dudes. So that should be your target audience. The people who keep posting these videos saying, hey, this is what happened to me. This is what's going on with me. Hey, them the people right there, bro. I'm just trying to tell you. Them the people I look for, you know, because they can identify what I'm saying. To me, to go to somebody who ain't never dealt with the cops in their day in their life, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. You a problem. You're just starting trouble, ain't you? You're a troublemaker. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Trust me. So I look for the vagabonds, the black sheep, the vegans, you know, the people society say ain't shit. Because usually them the people society just keep bum rushing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but what? Yeah, I mean that's
The
a
reason why I believe in what you're saying and what you're doing, because I know you speak facts. I know you speak truth. I know you mean well. But it's gonna be 10 more people who say, this dude's starting trouble. This dude right here, what are he talking? This dude, and they don't understand because they never been through it. Don't waste your time with them until you get enough of the people who've been through it. That's all I was saying. You know what I mean?
I think that's a
And I
fair
appreciate
point.
you talking to me because I've been through it. I feel you. I just wanted to iron out the little details, try to make sure we, you know what I mean? Hey, I want to know the details, man. I want to know how far we can go with this box of Pandora's. But I'm with you. And I think that's your target audience, the people who've been through it. That's your biggest growth. This is how I grow, and just my perspective, how I grow. This is how I find those people who've been there. I know you've been there, bro. And if you ain't been there, just wait a couple more days. You're going to get there.
Yeah, I've been there.
Like, damn, I was just, I feel, you know what I mean? Same thing with when you say politics, them people who've been forced to pay taxes, that the IRS have knocked on their door, that, you know what I mean? Those people who's been in them systems and know that they have a voice. You know what I mean? So I say that's your target audience, man. I'm not telling, that's who I'll be targeting. I'll be looking for those people because those are your allies, man. And this is how you grow. And I'll help you any way you want, bro. Just tell me how. I don't know how to grow, but I know how to talk to people and just tell them, look, I know how to find people who know they've been through that same struggle. And we ain't gonna share the same beliefs. We ain't gonna believe the same thing. We're not gonna be eye to eye, trust me. But our common bond, we know what it is. And this is why we fucks with each other. You know what I mean? Like me and you, we're not gonna see eye to eye on everything, Matthew. We just ain't. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But I promise you, our core belief is there. Keep that mutual respect. Nobody can touch our friendship. Nobody can touch the common bond we got. And when we disagree, we'll say, bro, look at it my way, bro. Look at it my way. We both do that. And if not, we disagree and move on. But we know what the goal is. This is why I find people with the same goal as me, meaning you've been through it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. And we can grow together. And it's an uphill battle. Don't get it twisted. But that's where you start at, bro.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. And I mean, it is part of why I obviously reached out to yourself, and I have reached out to other auditors as well, because you're all doing such a great job of highlighting some of the problems that we have in our society. And for me, I'm like, okay, and here is a solution, or like a kind of solution that I think we should move to. And and also what you're talking about, like with the unity thing, that's why I kind of that's why I believe in this so much, because you're right. We might disagree on loads of things. We might agree on things. It doesn't matter, because the one thing that we do agree on, and this is why this self-ownership thing, it's the one thing I feel like we could unite most people. It doesn't have to be all people, but most people. If we can get most people understanding self-ownership and getting on the same page on how we define crime, like I say, and when I go back to my comment about like the only people that would oppose this is fascists, is because what I meant was when actually when you're fully laying it out to somebody, when you're having a one-on-one conversation, you're talking about this is how we should define crime, this basic concept that everyone owns themselves, and that the only person that's actually going to oppose that concept, not the only person that's going to have concerns and questions, you know, all of that, but the only person who's actually going to actually oppose it would be someone who actually opposes self-ownership, which is by definition a fascist. So there's plenty of normal people like what you're talking about who are going to be more closed off to this. Although one other thing I would say though, and just to give an example that you gave with your friend who doesn't believe in systemic racism, is, and you are right, you're going to have more joy speaking to someone who's had the experiences so that they know the truth of what you're saying. And you are right about that. I'm not disputing that too. That's 100% correct. And that is why I reach out to people who already recognize the problems with the system, because I'm going to be more receptive to the solution, other than people who might not even see the problems, let alone be receptive to the solution. But the other thing I think is important is an importance of clarity, and importance not to talk past each other. Now, just to give the example of you and your friend, and I'm not saying this is the case, you might not be talking past each other. But I've heard people have debates about the systemic racism thing, like one person saying it doesn't exist and another person on the other side saying it does. And I've listened to them and I've found myself agreeing with a lot of what both sides said. And I'm like saying, well, hang on a minute, these two people disagree with each other, yet they're both saying things I agree with. Because the person that's denying the existence of systemic racism will point to the fact that there's now a theoretical equality under the law. You know, there's, you know, you don't have Jim Crow laws and stuff like that anymore.
The game so far. Yeah.
Exactly. So they'll look at all of those things and they'll say, well, what's systemic racism? There's no laws, there's no segregation, you know, so they'll look at that. And they are right in that, but what they're missing is all of the aspects from the other person's perspective, what they're talking about, which is not only the deep-seated historical knock-on effect from this history. It's not like you can just say, okay, from now on, we're going to be on an even playing field and everything else magically puts itself in place. Plus, obviously, you've got the things like, you know, when you've got a society where you've got, say, a lot of racist people of a particular race in all of the positions of power, obviously that's going to create a systemic problem for all the people of the opposite, you know, of that, right? You know, so these things, so again, it's one of those situations. Now, I'm not saying that even if you clarify those points, maybe your friend would still deny it and still be, you know, maybe that's true. Yeah. Just as it's maybe the case that there'll be some people that would still be resistant to what I'm talking about.
There you go.
But it is still worth that extra clarification, because you might just be talking past someone, you know, like someone may understand you a bit better, even though they haven't had the experience. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people who are resistant to it or have some kind of knee-jerk, well, no, I'm not. But then when I speak to them more, their objection wasn't actually based in a reality of what I'm proposing. It was based on a misunderstanding of what I'm proposing. Or like, for example, I mean, a common thing, no matter how many times I say that the non-aggression principle was not a pacifist principle, the most common thing people say to me is, oh, so if someone just punches me, I'm not allowed to hit them back. And I'm like, no, the non-aggression principle just says you don't attack people. You can use force to defend, and that's why it's perfect for law, because we can still use force against rapists and murderers and thieves and all those things. We just don't get to use force against peaceful people, and that's the simple beauty of it, you know. So
you can't say give me the money and use force on them. I agree.
Exactly. So it's just about, so I mean, like I say, I'm not disagreeing with what you say, because I think you're 100% right in what you say, and this is something that I am trying to do, like reaching out to people like yourself who already recognize what's wrong with the system and saying, look, well, this I think this is the solution, and I think we should all get together and just, I know it seems so impotent to just talk about it, and obviously we've got to do more than just talk about it down the line, but at the moment, me sitting here with my 54 subscribers, all I can really do is talk to other people who can help get this message out, who've got a better ability to, you know, because the thing is as well, the other thing as well is the more people I speak to who take this on themselves may be able to explain it in ways that, you know, I do my best to try to explain it to people, but, you know, I may fail and I may not be able to communicate to certain people. I can't get through to certain people that other people could get through. Like, you know, I mean, among the people I try to contact, I always think, like, imagine I had a conversation with someone like Jordan Peterson, who's got like a great big following, you know who that guy is, and like who's got a great big following. If I convinced him, then I don't need to convince the people that follow him, because he will, you know.
I agree.
This is the thing. This is how we overcome the problem of the sheep. The sheep aren't our enemy. They could be our ally or our enemy, depending on, you know, what we do to win them over. So that's my plan of action, so to speak. And it's still, you know.
No, it's a good plan. You find the snakes, and that way they'll just delegate it to their people, right? I'm with you on that, right? That's a great plan, man. I'm with you, man. Any way I can help. Maybe we'll do a live stream one day, man. And, you know, that'll definitely jump subscribers. You know what I mean? I can't tell you it jumped to 5,000, but everybody, you know, each his own, right? But in the genre I'm in, is people who love their rights. I'm pretty sure a lot of my followers gonna love what you're saying, you know. And I'm sure a lot of them gonna have the questions I got. Hey, well, I get what you're saying, but break this down for me, like I just did, you know. Well, what does this mean? Well, how that work? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get, but if they can understand this, and I think we both share this, no victim, no crime. And if we both just understand that, everything else is apples and oranges, right? Just however you mix it in. But Look, do unto others as you want to be done, and if you fuck somebody, then take care of them, make them right, make them whole. You know what I mean? Is that not what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's exactly what you're hearing. I mean, no victim, no crime is probably the best way to sum it up, and nice and simple and easy for people to understand. I suppose the only thing that I say beyond that is I'm just saying the reason why no victim, no crime. Like why no victim, no crime? Because
Spit it out.
we own ourselves.
Plain and simple. Say it one more time. The reason why no victim, no crime.
Because we own ourselves.
Okay. No doubt. That's exactly why it's no victim, no crime.
Exactly.
Because we are.
And that's the only thing we have. Sorry, that's the only thing we have to unite on. Like you're saying about all the other things, we can disagree on other things. Like I spoke to a guy who calls himself an anarcho-capitalist. So he's kind of a voluntarist still, but he's a right-wing leaning guy, and he's all into capitalism and all the rest of it. Then I spoke to another guy who identified as a progressive, kind of like a socialist. But I had a conversation with him, and after having the conversation, he was also saying, yeah, I'm a voluntarist as well. So he's a voluntarist progressive. This other guy's a voluntarist capitalist. They couldn't be more far apart in ideology, yet
it's a common goal there somewhere.
Exactly. And I even proposed a potential voluntary collective setup to the progressive guy, which he said, well, yeah, that's kind of the sort of thing I'm always talking about, obviously minus the government involvement and minus the coercion. And then I presented the exact same idea to the anarcho-capitalist, and he loved it as well. But the only difference is he said that's capitalism, and the other guy said that's socialism. It was the exact same thing. One of them wanted to call it capitalism, one of them wanted to call it socialism, and I was just sat there in the middle saying, do you know what? I don't care what you call it, because it's a free society, and that's all I care about. Now you get
it. Look, this is where people lose me, and I hate to say this, and I'm gonna be quick with you. When you start breaking it down into labels, you lose me. When you left and right, see, I'm middle. I'm left and I'm right, brother. I'm Republican and Democrat. I'm up and down. I'm everything in the book. I'm not gonna put myself in that one box to say, look, I love money. I'm a capitalist too. At the same time, I love the socialism. I love to give to people and make sure everybody equal. So I'm all the above. I do not go to labels. I would never ever tell you I'm this or that. I don't even know what that means. Look, I stopped listening when you start putting labels on it, because I already know I'm human. First and foremost, I'm human, and I want what you want. I want to be treated like you treated. And if you hurt me, pay me. And if I hurt you, I pay you. And other than that, let's just move on and do our thing. That's me. I don't want to do I think that's the divide and conquer problem we have. This is why when I was telling you about my cousin with systemic racism, I just agree to disagree. See, whatever he feel or however he feel about that, I don't judge him for it. That's just look, okay, we disagree, but let's find what we got in common. This is why we can have those conversations. The problem is that once we disagree, we start hating each other. I don't like you because you like Trump, and I don't like you because you like this person. That's the stupidest I ever heard, brother. It just is.
Yeah.
You might like Dolly Parton. I don't. That don't mean I should hate you. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know who Dolly Parton is, but
I do, yeah.
That don't mean I should hate you now. You know what I mean? And when people start doing that, I'm out.
Yeah.
Count me out. When we start dividing ourselves, I'm out. And so that's me personal. I'm out. I don't do left or right. I don't do up and down. I'm never going to do that. Black and white. I'm black as hell. I see color. I'm not colorblind. Trust me. I know you white, Matthew. I know I'm black. That's not going to ever change how I treat you, respect you, or interact with you, brother. You know what I mean? It's not going to make me think any different than you, and I hope they do the same, you know what I mean, vice versa.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit and pretend that I'm just blind to the world. No, I see the world. I just don't want to label myself. I want us to say we humans, and you're going to like some things and some things you won't, brother. Don't hate me for certain things I like, and let's just be friends, man. I hope that's long when it sounds confusing, but let's just be friends, brother. However we can achieve that method, let's just be friends, brother. Can we do that?
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, and that was a perfect example of what you're talking about as well, because, you had this guy who identified as a socialist or a progressive, and you had this guy who identified as a capitalist. And under those labels that they've given themselves, they wouldn't have a conversation normally. But for me, through just transcending those labels and not caring and just having a conversation with them about this basic concept of rights, I was able to have a conversation and realize that they actually both wanted the same thing. They just put a different label on it because they both wanted what I was advocating, what I was presenting. They both said, yeah, that's great. But one of them wanted to call it socialism because what I was advocating was like a voluntary collective where you had like non-profit programs and stuff like that. But the other one wanted to call it capitalism because it still respected private property and it wasn't enforced. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Call it what you want. The labels don't matter because what does matter is everyone's basic rights are respected. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that's our common ground. And just to go back to what you said about the live stream and stuff like that, I would absolutely love to do something like that because
we will, man. We stay in touch, brother. I don't go live much often. You know, I'm not a really big live person. You know what I mean? But I have been live many times. I ain't been live in a few months. I'll make my first live with you. I don't know when we can hook that up, but we can go live, man. And I'll let you take the lead, man. You bring many people to your channel as you can. I don't know if we have 5 people on the live or 500 people on the live. I couldn't tell you. Honestly, I just don't know with my channel. I will tell you, man, I would absolutely love to have a live with you and let you get your message out there, man. And hopefully, you know, you find more people like me who hear your message and come. And then you're going to have people who hate. You're going to have people who troll. You're going to have people who get it, man. You know how it go. But I would absolutely love to do that, brother. So I can't tell you when. Don't get me to lie to you.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I want to get that done by the end of the year. Because it's the 13th, right? I don't know what day. But I do want to get that done. Maybe we can sit down and have a pre-meeting about the live so we can structure it. And then after you get going down what your plans is and what your ideas is, we can have an open panel and let people come up and talk to you or whatever they want to do, and you know, see where it goes from there, brother.
Yeah, that would be great because what I crave with this is scrutiny. I mean, you know, like when you said to me before about, you know, and that's why I said, like, you know, don't hold back. I want the scrutiny. And even when people think, oh, well, he doesn't want the criticism, well, I do, because it helps me explain it. It helps me get the message across. Like when people ask me questions, it's often because I failed to explain something in a way that already answered that question. So the fact that they asked the question allows me to clarify something that I've obviously not made clear.
And sometimes people are a little slower like me. I'm a simpleton, so I'm not that brightest guy in the world. So sometimes I try to say it a couple of times so I can understand where you're coming from, because I didn't get it the first time, even though you explained it well, if that makes sense. Sometimes I got to read the book twice. It's just me. So forgive me if I do that. Sometimes I can go over the same things, and it's just me trying to get a better understanding. Because look, brother, I don't got a college degree, so it takes me a little longer to learn. You know what I mean?
You put yourself down, man. I thought you caught it perfectly well. The thing is, I'm presenting something like new to someone, so I don't expect you to just understand everything that's in my head, you know, just like that. And part of it's more to do with my explanation than it is, you know. So no, you've got it all perfectly, and you're obviously a sharp guy. And I really, like I say, I mean, the reason I reached out to you, I reach out to like loads of people, but they still have a criteria of somebody that I think is worth talking to, that I realize is obviously going to be intelligent enough to, you know, take it on and have a conversation and ask relevant questions and all the rest of it, but also someone who's honest enough and has the integrity to deal with me honestly. I'm going to get trolls, I know that, but obviously those are the people I want to avoid and not waste my time on and that. So
good luck with that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm quite happy to have criticism. I'm not afraid of people saying, "Oh, I think these got these good." Anyone and anyone listening to this as well, anyone who thinks that there's flaws in this or has problems or questions or criticisms, bring it on. I genuinely want that, because it helps me explain it better. It helps me improve the way I present the message, and it helps me reach out to other people who can take this message on and help, you know, spread it further and farther. So, well,
nobody can tell it better than you. So I love it. And soon, man, I don't know what your schedule. I know you work night shifts.
Well, I do. I work day and night shift. It alternates. I do 2 weeks of days and then 2 weeks of nights. And
I mean, roughly, how many hours a week do you work?
Well, it alternates. I do a 60-hour week because I do 12-hour shifts. So I do like a 60-hour week where I work Monday, Tuesday. I have Wednesday, Thursday off, and then I work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then the next week is the mirror opposite of that. So I'll have the Monday to Tuesday off. I'll work and then it goes to days and nights. So basically, any day I can do, because I might not be able to do it on that week. Like if I can't do Wednesday this week, I can do Wednesday next week. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's no specific day I can't do. It just depends what week it's on. But I'm sure we can arrange something anyway.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch and figure out how we can make it a good time for both of us. And just get the message out there, man. You know, I don't look. My platform, man, what I do with my platform, because right now, I don't want to talk about it, but I got a lot of things going on with the legal system. Meaning I don't got no open cases, right? I've took care of all my open cases, and all my open cases was for recording, or it's always something to do with what I do. It's never nothing. I ain't got no robberies or nothing, right? But
no real crimes.
Right, I don't know real crime. It's always running my mouth and dealing with the cops, and they just throw the cuffs on you and knock you up and say you're disorderly or something, right? But I've knocked those cases out. I got a civil lawsuit coming up, and I'm not going to file it till February, because that's my deadline, and I wanted to make sure I got all the information I needed to be legit about it. So I haven't been going out doing filming and being active in the public, so I just been sharing videos and doing more of that on my platform. That's my goal, just giving everybody else a voice, because that's what my channel about. Give a voice to the voiceless. I am the voiceless. When I tell you I'm the voiceless, nobody heard my cries, bro. I screamed. I had no platform and nobody who listened to me who gave a shit. Trust me. And every time I turned around, this is why I built my platform, and this is why I share videos the way I do, because anybody I can give a voice to, I do. You know what I mean? Anybody. I don't care what your voice is, just oppose my voice. If it's something I don't even believe in, I'm gonna give you that voice, because the speech we must protect the most is the one we hate the most. That is my goal. When I tell you that, I live by that. When you talking the shit I hate the most, I probably fucks with you. I probably mess with you. You know what I mean? You don't like what you got to say. I want your voice to be out there, because I know what it means to be silenced, brother. That's all. You know what I mean? Anyway, I ain't gonna rumble on about that, but that's what my channel about, man. Just giving anybody and everybody a voice. I share videos of people I don't even like. Trust me. I don't fuck with them people. But I believe in that First Amendment right to have that voice. Because if we can't do that, then how can I speak what I speak? You know what I mean? So
yeah, well, like I say, I appreciate the work you do, and I think your channel is very important. And as I say, anyone listening to this who's not already aware of you, check out Dying to Live. I'll put a link to your channel in the description.
Oh yeah, and then I'm gonna get deeper on my look. Right now, I try not to get deep on my channel. It's just a quick message of what your rights are, or something I can share with you and keep record you until I can get back out there and actually record. But as long as I got this lawsuit hanging over my head, I'm not touching the streets. For the simple fact is, the reason why my lawsuit, I gotta wait till February, because I had 2 cases that they threw on me, and I had to knock those out before I could file my lawsuit, because I don't want no cases that I'm fighting currently while I'm fighting legal civil litigation. You know what I mean? So now I think it was November, I knocked those 2 cases out. I had a disorderly conduct and a trespassing. Was filming. Cop didn't like what I was saying. He charged me disorderly and trespassing. Okay, went to jail. However it worked, I had to get those cases knocked out. I got those dismissed now in November, right? Now my next case is my lawsuit, providing I don't go to jail for something else, similar or small, before I can file my lawsuit. So this is what's going on with me, brother. Yeah.
Well, you're still doing good work anyway with your videos and your commentary. And the thing is, there's value to it. When you're showing other people's interactions as well.
Yeah.
You're still telling people, look, this is the law. This is the rights that you have, even under our shitty system that doesn't give you the rights you should have. You still have these rights, and it's important for people to know this. So don't, it's like, I wouldn't put yourself down in that regards, because you're still doing important work even when you're not physically out in the streets yourself. And it's important. It's educationally important, and it's important for getting a bit of awareness.
Well, thank you. So thank you, brother, for the support. I appreciate it, man. I wish I can do more at this present time. I just can't. So I do what I can. I try to tell people what their rights is, and I try to highlight and showcase other channels and give them a voice. Best I can do right now, man. That's all I got. That's all I got right now, Matthew. So we can only hook up on that live, and we can do a, 2-3 hour stream. Lives can be pretty long. They could go. You've seen some lives, so they can be pretty long, man. So hopefully we can hook up and do something, man, this month, before this month over with. I know holidays. I don't know how y'all celebrate holidays over there. The Christmas coming up, and we'll figure out something before then, hopefully. But if not, let's make it happen, brother.
Okay, that's great. Right, well, I'll stop the recording now anyway. So anyone who's listening, thanks for listening, and Thank
Well,
you,
that's
Quentin,
what's
for
up. Thank
taking
you
the time.
again. Thanks for having me, brother. I love your show, your platform, man. It's gonna grow. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Blessings.
Thank you, man.